Today I wanted to look at an example of a delay artillery push in Domination. So we've got a replay from Tim the Wilder and its current year of course being the submitter, classic High Elves versus Dark Elves. Malekith leading the way. For the Dark Elves, he's got some Reaper bolt throwers. Tim the Wilder does 3 Reaper bolt throwers, so looking to make a nice delay push on this map here, which is of course Silver Spire. Lots of choke points, very little room for flanking, but still plenty of range for the artillery to hopefully get some work done. We've got some Dark Shard shields here through the centers for additional range. Some Bleak Swords, Dread Spears, Malekith, of course, up on the dragon. Imric on the other side, disappointingly not on a dragon, but such is as it is. He's coming in on horseback. Got some Silver Helms here, Illyrian Reavers, and White Lions as well. Lore of Life Mage. Rocking, Earthblood and Flesh to Stone. Very interesting. Got some White Lions here, archers. Yeah, just lots of cavalry as well, so should be interesting. For the High Elves reserves, got a Flamespire Phoenix, 2 Illyrian Reavers, 2 Illyrian Reaver archers, 3 Rangers, 1 more White Lion Infantry, and 3 Shadow Warriors. For the Dark Elves reserves, a single Cold One Knight, 3 more Corsairs, the Regiment of Renown, Dread Spears, Hellebronai. 5 Sad Swords, 4 Dark Riders, and 3 more Dread Spears. Let's see how things go. Its current year, gonna slowly come into range. He's bringing in a Phoenix as well, Flamespire for a little bit of terror, and sort of AoE damage and so forth. A little bit of Gaze of Malice in response. And so far, the artillery hasn't really gotten into range. It's just now sort of getting to where it can start shooting. The Dark Elf artillery, of course, does have a slightly shorter range than the High Elf artillery. Does get a benefit of extra armor-piercing missile damage from Murderous Prowess, which certainly is very helpful on a unit of this type. Let's see how it does here. Just now coming into range. I would imagine it's going to try and go on the scatter shot here to do anti-infantry damage. We see it then switches on over. So it has a bonus versus infantry of plus 11 on each shot. You can see, though, that it's still very low base damage on each projectile. It's really only, what, 11 damage? I guess 22 hitting the infantry gets doubled because of that. Also, can I just say quickly, this Kothic color scheme is quickly becoming one of my favorites for the High Elves. I love the minty green color, and then the little wave on the banner as well is super nice. But anyway, the missile resistance, the relatively low DPS of those individual shots does mean that they're just really not going to do all that much damage to these White Lion infantry, especially now they're sort of hiding in the trees here. The trees will even block some of those shots. A lot of things compounding there to make that artillery relatively ineffective in this specific instance. You can see there taking a few chunks, doing some damage. Don't get me wrong, he definitely deals some damage, but different factors are contributing to help lessen the impact, certainly, of them. Let's see how it develops, though. These artillery delay pushes do take quite some time to develop, and that's one of the things here you'll notice is that Tim the Wilder basically just concedes. I mean, he does even take a little bit of extra time capping his own home objective, which arguably is a mistake. He's going to let its current year get a decent lead on tickets, as well as giving him the objective advantage initially. So we're going to actually fast forward in the initial phase of Domination, which is not something that's super typical. Its current year is just going to macro in some more cavalry, come down to potentially threaten this objective here, even if just to pull some of the value away. But notice how the Dark Elves are also spreading their damage around. Ultimately, I think this is probably a mistake. I really think all 3 should focus fire one single target, try and route it away, and then move on to the next target. When you try and spread your damage around like this, you see how its current year is also like maneuvering specific units in and out of range. Nice breath attack from Malekith, though. Does take a good chunk out of those White Lions, and he can now drop onto the ground with relatively little to respond. I mean, maybe some of those archers can get some shots on him. The Reavers aren't really going to do much there, though. So value damage-wise, I mean, no doubt Tim the Wilder's got 1,500 damage value lead, right? Which means he really needs to make his move as soon as possible. Right now, its current year is just feasting on the victory tickets. So, again, that's kind of the one downside of this type of strategy is you need to know when to pull the trigger, and it looks like now Timber Wilder is going to start to advance with still about a 1,500 gold damage value lead. Really could have advanced maybe 30 seconds to a minute earlier than that, but that's fine. Malekith going to be running some damage and disruption here, but he does have to be careful. Although the Reavers themselves aren't very threatening, neither are the minty fresh Lululemon Silverhelms. Imric, though, is an entirely different story. Elite anti-large AP damage, 90 charge bonus, 6872 in terms of attack defense. Just one of the best anti-large duelists in the game on a horse. And although he does have pretty low HP, he can certainly put an absolute beating on Malekith, especially with cavalry supporting there. Elves are now able to start responding. We've got some Shadow Warriors in here. Illyrian Reavers brought in, the Archers as well. Looking pretty good there. And the White Line Infantry also advancing. And the bolt throwers have used up quite a bit of their ammunition, but let's check in on their damage value. So 450, just up to 500 there. This one's about a little under 500, so they're all roughly about 500, give or take. It's pretty interesting. They're on pace to pay for themselves, but just barely, and tactically costing a lot of time, which is certainly a resource that in Domination is a pretty big priority, right? Having proper timing on capturing those objectives and whatnot, definitely very important. But let's see, the High Elf Cavalry trying to push through, bypass the spears here. We've got the Phoenix into combat as well. Be doing a decent job. Probably has taken quite a bit of damage, though, in this round. Not too much so far, but nice splash attack there. Helps clear out some of those Black Ark Corsairs. And the scatter shots now focusing on the Archers, which is going to do a decent amount of damage, but Dragonhorn being popped now. Big map-wide melee attack buff from Imric will definitely help these Rangers. I mean, their 53 attack plus an 8 bonus versus infantry puts them 61, so they're definitely making significant contact, even against the 42 defense of those Dread Spears. And of course, Imric, again, fighting on the low ground here against Malekith. Just soak up a little bit of this as well as they duke it out here in the sunset of Athaloran. Very appropriate that the Wood Elves would be the spectators in this particular battle. But anyway, Elves surging through, tying up, and actually dealing significant damage to a lot of these range units. This push with the Illyrian Reavers and the Lions working together in tandem with the Flamespire Phoenix has got a big terror route going now as well. A bunch of these Black Ark Corsairs and what are they, Dark Shards and other units getting routed away. But, I mean, yeah, gold damage-wise, its current year has managed to actually get back and actually now reclaim a slight damage value lead. So very interesting that despite the delay artillery push giving a sizable advantage initially, the High Elves were able to counterattack very effectively here. I love the use of the Lions in tandem with the Flamespire Phoenix. I know a lot of people, and myself included, have talked a lot of bad about the Lions in the past, but I am definitely a huge fan of Lion Infantry, especially in Domination. Murderous Prowess has kicked off now, though, which means any Dark Elf units, which I believe get summoned in, should start with it active. Yeah, you see these guys coming out of deployment with Murderous Prowess all charged up still. It'll give a nice little damage and leadership spike to, or I guess melee attack specifically for these melee units. Shadow Warriors run in there, showing off their fancy new fall styles. And somebody's got Shield of Thorns as well, or Flesh to Stone, I guess it would be, to give them physical resistance. Didn't quite catch who that was, but nice to not see just Dweller spam here. Dweller spam definitely would have annihilated this entire blob, and definitely would be very good on this map to take, but nice to see someone doing something slightly different. The Dark Elves are still pushing, though. I mean, they've got quite a bit of infantry coming through here. Malekith eventually is going to prevail over Imric and his cavalry force, not without taking a lot of damage in the process, but, I mean, there's a small chance, I guess, the Malekith loses this battle, but I would think that certainly with the cavalry support, the ability to cycle charge from the air, Malekith should be able to win that decisively, but who knows, maybe he'll just leave Imric to his fate there, drowning in Dark Riders. But anyway, got some Cold One Knights moving up and around, sliding through to the objective. Malekith coming through will start to break up, and the High Elves, you can see, despite the great counterattack here, breaking a lot of units, the terror route eventually does kind of fall down as the Phoenix gets a little bit overextended here, and should mean that the Dark Elves can start to put together a little bit more of a cohesive push try and get actually onto this objective here. But let's see. Archers still surviving, still firing. Imrik definitely will beat those Dark Riders eventually down on the low ground, but it's going to take him some time. In the meanwhile, Malekith drops a nasty Soul Stealer and drops down into melee combat, breaks Lulu Lion's hands, pulls immediately away. Great terror out from him on the High Elves there, and now the damage value lead once again slightly in Dark Elves' favor. Should allow them to get this end objective, and in fact they have already. But if we look at the timer here, and I love this multiplayer UI mod for this specific reason, you can see it's a little over 6.5 minutes to win for its current year, and a little under 8 minutes, just a hair under 8 minutes for Tim the Wilder. So even at a 2 cap, he's still not on pace to win. He does need to 3 cap here, and you can see him kind of realizing that. Of course, they weren't playing with this multiplayer UI mod. I'm only casting it after the fact, so he's just got to guess. But the rule of thumb is if your opponent is closer to winning than you are to your opponent, you need to 3 cap, essentially. So like here, right, its current year is less than 400 points away from winning, whereas there's about a 500 point gap between them, right? So kind of that, with that rule of thumb, you would then understand that, okay, as the Dark Elves, I do need to push forward and try and cap this objective. That said, its current year also can understand this and start to macro his units down onto this low ground. He's got some Rangers here defending. He's got some Reaver Archers running a blocking detachment. Silver Helms also coming down from this side deployment, which a lot of people just fail to use on this map effectively. Coming around and not get a nice mobile hammer and anvil crushing these advancing Corsairs. Although a handful more regiments are going to make their way down the hill here, even just delaying, even if the High Elves weren't able to win decisively here, just to delay the Dark Elves long enough. I mean, they certainly are going to have to run quite a delaying action. A full-on 5 minutes left until victory for the High Elves, so let's see what they can do. Imrik still fighting on the low ground, actually finishes off those Dark Riders as prophesied, though he's going to have a hard time capping that objective completely by himself. Let's see how he can get on. Perhaps if its current year is able to sneak some light cavalry or other fast units around this side here and get onto that objective to perhaps threaten, and it looks like some Reavers are going to try and do just that. The middle is pretty well lost. I mean, you might as well still run a few units, whatever's left of these tattered forces, just to block and, you know, delay these forces from coming down, maybe sealing off your deployment or coming to assist on the capture here. Malekith, speaking of which, is coming to assist on the capture, at least trying to break these High Elf units, get his units which can capture onto the objective. Malekith himself, of course, cannot cap, which will be an issue for him for its current year. As long as he can thin out all the support troops here, everything that's not Malekith, he can still delay this force well enough to hold out for the win. Malekith, he is not going to be able to take down. I mean, just realistically, without Imrik, he really doesn't have the tools to deal with Malekith effectively here. Malekith's also managed to heal cap himself through successive Soul Stealers, which is quite impressive. Of course, this Flamespire Phoenix also still alive with the Life Mage here, interrupting this Reaper Bolt Thrower from firing once again. The Reapers do get through. They manage to get on those Dark Shards, but another Bolt Thrower sneakily hidden in the woods here is going to try and snipe him. Most sinister and foul, of course. Typical of Dark Elves, as they shoot the tree directly in front of them. Great plan, guys. Worthy of Team Rocket, to be honest. Anyway, Malekith making his push here. Doing his best to recreate the gate scene from Warhammer 2 trailer from way back in the day. And the Dark Elves pushing through the High Elves. I have to say, again, the Kothic color scheme looks absolutely fabulous. Most of the High Elf color schemes look pretty good, if I'm being honest, but this one, the banner in particular, I think is the best part. Like, those little waves are just amazing, and even when the banner gets very tattered, they still look fantastic. Great blocking here from its current year, just to keep Malekith and his forces off the objective as much as possible. He's got a little bit of supply. He could bring some units in to reinforce pretty quickly from either side here, and it looks like he is doing just that as some more Rangers descend from this side here. How's Imric doing? Not too good, actually. The bolt throwers did manage to eventually find their way around the trees and get a full snipe on him, shutting him down and finally securing this back objective. So, although I love the threat in there, and again, I love this also kind of threatening on the center objective, at best you're going to pull some forces away, like perhaps these Dark Riders that might have gone to help secure this position here. Going to pull them back onto the center, but we'll see. Certainly the High Elves are still holding well enough on capture weight to maintain that objective, but it is going to be very, very close. Soak up some more cinematics as the Clothikian cavalry pulled off the Dark Riders. I think I just heard the notification in the background too. The Imric bit the dust to the bolt throwers on the far side of the field, but we'll keep it right here with Malekith as he just blends through the High Elves. Absolutely amazing on his giant black dragon, of course. Also known as the TIE Advanced. Going to be dropping some heat all over this objective, but still only one half unit of Corsairs was able to actually make it onto the objective. And since both of these Rangers technically have unit models on this capture as well, they're going to be able to hold position here. A couple of clutch White Lions coming in from the side also managed to get their feet onto the objective. Most likely, yes, perhaps, maybe not, but regardless, should be enough to hold. They've only got about a minute left until its current year can take home the win. Finally, the Phoenix getting his infinite rebirths has been routed off, but still, try not to look at it too much. It will burn your eyes. As I zoom into it, some High Elf Cav just kind of chilling on that center as well, but of course the decisive engagement is on the low ground. Finally, we've got multiple Dark Elf cavalry through. We've got Dark Elf infantry, even more Dark Elf cavalry finally onto that objective, but look, the High Elves still have enough capture weight to hold. So there it is. Last 30 seconds, we'll soak up some more cinematics as the outcome is all but decided at this point, despite the fact that many more Elves will lose their lives in the process, which is fine. Honestly, that's just fine. Definitely very, very cool. And big thanks to It's Current Year for sending this one in. I've been sitting on this replay for a while, just figuring out the right time to cast it, but figured it would be an interesting mix-in for today. There you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. But let's take a look at the breakdown here. Of course, Imric gets some pretty good value back. He's not crazy expensive on the horse, but he's not super cheap either, so that's probably cost-effective enough for him to be worth bringing. Lyrian Reavers do a great job generally, taking out some backline targets. But a lot of the value here comes from, of course, the Phoenix. The Rangers doing a great job. Shadow Warriors also reaping some really nice value as well. So love to see that. Malekith, of course, almost 4,000 damage value on him, kind of to be expected. And although technically, I guess the bolt throwers paid for themselves, I think a couple of them got resummoned twice. And just in general, this delay artillery push, it's really situational. Like, you have to have quite powerful artillery in order to make it work, and I just don't see the Reaper bolt throwers. It's the High Elves in particular. I don't see this strategy working out necessarily every time. Maybe it would have worked out okay here had Tim the Wilder actually advanced slightly sooner, been able to secure that second objective just a little bit sooner, not have quite so much of a lead to have to come back from. But anyway, yeah. Rest of the army here, Corsairs, they do okay. Dark Shards, again, they're pretty decent. Cold One Knights actually do a great job, so just overall, kind of, yeah. A lot of cavalry does pretty good. A lot of the ranged units do okay. A lot of the infantry tends to struggle, but actually a few of them also trade pretty cost effectively. So there you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. See you next time.